And we're gonna do our best to be timely, let you share whatever you want to share, as much as you can share it, but, we wanna get started from there. And, I wanna start with opening up with prayer, so I'm gonna ask Reverend Buckington if he will start us off with prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come this evening with our heads and our hearts. We pray, oh God, that you will be with us even in this meeting that we're having today. Give us insight, give us direction, help us. We pray that God, this meeting will be done health, decently, and order, according to your will and your way. Bless our efforts and even our endeavors. Look over the city and this government. We pray, oh God, that you just bless us like only you have and only you can. These and other blessings I ask in Christ Jesus' name. Amen.
And I want to thank those who have come and those who have served on the committee to have this discussion. Just to summarize, you know, we were introduced to this ordinance last month in our city council meeting. It was introduced in our forum court, and that ordinance is concerning establishing a permit procedures in respecting parades and public assembly. So with that being said, I think for clarity purposes, the way we want to run the meeting is we first want to establish the grounds from which the order was introduced to us, or the ordinance was introduced to us, so that we can have clarity. So I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask our chief if he would kind of tell us how the ordinance was introduced. Okay?
Well, it was sent out from our city attorney, who drafted the ordinance. The county had an ordinance that was, it's really a good ordinance. It's Little Rock's ordinance. It's been utilized by them for years. Probably a little out of scale with our population and necessarily with our needs, per se. There's a lot of things in there I think that we can probably agree on that we could trim down if the city attorney agrees. But that's pretty much how it came about. We've discussed it in the past, or it's been brought up in the past about parades, and it's an issue that the police department has to do with, which is what I'm here for, is to relay the concerns of law enforcement, of the situation of law enforcement, and give your input as to how the city wants to proceed, to how the community wants us to proceed when we have certain events going on. But that's pretty much the ordinance. I mean, that's how it came to pass. I mean, it was brought up that, you know, hey, we have, you know, competing uses of facilities, and we have competing interests, say, of say a candlelight vigil in a parking lot, and then that parking lot is also a business, and the business has no place to have its customers park. And so the police department receives complaints about that. And that's pretty much what we're looking to do, and hopefully with what we can all accomplish here, is to come up with something that kind of sets some guidelines, to get everybody on the same page, and so the community and law enforcement can organize and communicate much more effectively than what we've done in the past.
All right. So from there, you've heard how and the reason why it was established or trying to be introduced, so that we can come together on the same page, so that we can eventually get to what would be, do we want it? Do we want it at all? Do we not want it? And make some type of recommendation. From there, what I asked the committee to do is I asked them to submit in writing what their concerns were. But what we're going to do, I didn't get everybody's concerns in writing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow everyone to speak and share your concerns about this ordinance, and then we'll go from there. So we can have volunteers, or I can go around the room.
I do want to ask the chief or whoever can answer this question, and that is, prior to this discussion, what has been put in place? What has been your policy or procedure up until this point?
Well, that's the thing, there hasn't been. There's no consistent, if you decide to hold a parade, there's a different set of procedures than if, say, Cedric was. Cedric may, or I say a parade, anything, candlelight vigil or a march or whatever. There's no set procedure. And that's what we're trying to establish, so we can better prepare for the event. If we have a set, or just some parameters, you know, that say, if we're gonna have a parade, and the parade should be from this point to this point, that we can know how many intersections we're gonna have to cover, know how many officers we're gonna need to make sure that the parade doesn't get broken up into continuity. Know when it's gonna end, or at least a rough time when it's gonna end. So we can go out and we can make necessary adjustments and, if it's on the square, I mean, we're all gonna start pointing at each other going, well, I thought you were gonna tell the Italian place that this is today. Well, I thought you were. Well, I thought I was. Oh, we were gonna, and then nobody winds up doing it. And I would rather the police department assume the responsibility of that. So we know it got done, and we have a point of contact. To just basically make it to where we're all on the same page and doing it the same every time, and setting the same guidelines and rules. So each group that wants to have a parade or a march, we all do the same. I mean, we all have the same procedures that we follow. So it's fair that way.
All right. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have like a ballpark figure of how many organizations or people are having assemblies and parades just in any given calendar year?
No, this is something that we've never kept up with, I guess. I don't know of anybody that does.
Well, we have basically, you can count on 3, maybe 4 yearly parades. You have the Christmas parade, you have the fair parade, you have the Martin Luther King parade, and I think they still have homecoming. Do they still have a homecoming parade?
No.
Are you talking about UAM?
Yeah, well, they have a homecoming parade on the streets.
I think he's meaning for the high school over there.
Yeah, like how, do they hold that?
Well, I think COVID threw a loop.
Okay, well,
11 years ago.
basically you have 3 parades that go on yearly. Like I said, Martin Luther King, the fair parade, and Christmas parade.
Well, to go back to your point here, one of the things that you said we didn't have a problem with, I'm not saying we didn't have a problem with, we had an incident, and it's not bad. Some kids got together and they wanted to pay their respects to the flag. We had no problem with it. We encouraged them. We did get some complaints from business, however, because they didn't have those places to park, the customers. We want to be able to keep it to where we can have it a good working relationship. If I'm gonna need to use your driveway, you should know. I should get your permission and let you know, and if not, I should let you know, hey, we're gonna be here from say 7 to 8, or we're gonna be here from this time to this time. So a property owner or a business owner would be able to at least make arrangements, you know, with their staff and with their customers. As far as significant problems, no. I mean, anything major, absolutely not. But the police department has services that they can offer that would expedite and make the process easier, faster, safer. And I think that it's not my job to tell you guys how to draft this, but it's my job to advise you of issues and problems that the city may face eventually. And as we encounter them, not when it's expedient in any other way, to bring it up. If we see something wrong, if I see something wrong, or my officer sees something wrong, we have the obligation to take that to the mayor, to the council, and to the citizens, and say, hey, we got this issue, we have some problems with it. We had one parade last year that I think was 7 or 8 intersections. We had 3 officers on it. We want to be able to make sure that a parade can go through and that somebody doesn't drive through an intersection that they think is protected and have a wreck, because that happened in Texas this past week. Someone drove a tractor through the 4th of July parade. There's got to be some type of control, or at least some direction, uniformity. The more communication that we can have, the better. And that's all we're trying to do, is work with the community and see what we can do to make things better.
I mean, I understand all of that,
know you use Texas as an example, wherever it was in Texas, that probably was a bigger population than this little 8,000 people. I understand the need, what you're saying for it, and it probably never would ever be a good time for this, but just some of the things that's involved in it, I just don't,
Are you talking about that are involved in the ordinance?
in the ordinance, yeah.
Well, the ordinance is just a framework, and we can, and Mr. Martin's here for that purpose. I mean, that's just a place to start. We can whittle out and take in and put out whatever we need.
So there were some other concerns, go ahead. As far as the introduction of the ordinance.
Well, the introduction of the ordinance is one thing, but I think what we should, with the lawyer, define everything that's on here, and what can be eliminated and what can't be eliminated. And I think we should just start basic with parades. You know, you gotta, see, right now, there's no procedure, you gotta pull every piece of paperwork I can find, there's no procedure, I guess it's just, we don't have a Christmas parade on this day. I think we need to just go back and say, well, put this in perspective, and put this in the ordinance, that you have to fill out the proper paperwork, just like the ordinance states, to have your Christmas parade, whatever, Martin Luther King parade, the traditional parades that we've been having. And it's saying go by the city, but the city doesn't do this. The Parks Department does it. So we can say with parade, we start off with, like I said, with parades. Then you got the rent of this building, you might wanna rent a pavilion. See, all that goes through the Parks Department. All that goes through the Parks Department. And I don't know if the mayor signs off on it or what, but we can eliminate that part simple for a parade. If you're gonna have a parade for whatever, you fill out an application for it. And like you said, where it's gonna start and where it's gonna end. And that take care of the whole parade issue. And they got guidelines for, like you said, renting the building, renting the pavilion. You can rent the pavilion at any park, but you don't rent the park. You can't rent the park. You know, if you wanna have something at the pavilion and you rent it, the little pavilion or the big pavilion, you rent it, that's yours. You can't control nothing that goes around outside that park. Just cause you sponsor it and somebody's over there barbecuing and smoke blowing your way, ain't nothing you do about it. You can't, am I right? You know what I'm saying? So I said, we take care of the things, like I said, the ordinance is not an ordinance, but it's in place already for renting the parks. When you rent, yeah, procedures are in place for renting the parks, the pavilion, renting pavilions and stuff like that. That's already in place. We just have to put it in the ordinance that you have to go through the Parks Department or the mayor/mayor to do that, parades and rent the pavilion.
Yeah, but I think you're still gonna run into the problem though of there's gonna be some mechanism in place to let, Parks is gonna need to let the police department know, because we're gonna be the ones having a lot of traffic, Parks are a lot of traffic.
Well, that's something we might, y'all have to get together, like right now, everything goes through the Parks Department.
Right.
So if there's, like I said, everybody knows when the Christmas parade is gonna be, or the fair parade, what, the 2nd September, whatever. You know, so that'd be a communication between the parks, the mayor, and the chief of police.
I agree with you. I think that some issues that you might run into though, on a state, city maintained road, there are certain things that can't go on that road. And I don't know that Parks would want to, assume the responsibility of knowing the legalities of what can and can't be on the road.
Well, as of now, whatever goes on has been going on for
Want to
the last.
assume their
Yeah,
responsibility.
I'm just saying, but I'm saying, I mean, you wanna build an ordinance of what's been going on for 55 years or what's gonna be going on in the next 50. You can build it backwards, you can build it forward. I agree with you. I mean, I'm on the same page. I think we need to have it where it's the same process. But there needs to be an understanding by whoever does it, that the police department's gonna need to know. If you want that intersection blocked, they're gonna need to let us know.
Okay, so am I understanding taking the parade out of this particular ordinance is what you're saying, period? Concerns about parades, or, I'm really getting confused because what type of parades are we talking about?
I'm not talking about taking the parades out. We have no ordinance or standard way of doing a parade. There's no paperwork that you file to do a parade. So, like I said, you're gonna have to get a permit to hold the fair parade this May.
That's all.
I think that's what the ordinance is trying to, create, is a streamlining of the process of all of this.
Yes. And I said we tackle put in the ordinance, that you wanna rent the parade, wanna rent the park, pavilion, or you wanna have the normal parade, Christmas parade, whatever, you still have to have a permit. And then it's up to the mayor and the parks department to let the police know, other than word of mouth and be in the newspaper, that the parade's coming up anyway. No, so that's totally easy. I think that's not a big debate issue.
So I'm assuming you're saying then add the renting of pavilions or using community centers to this ordinance here?
Yes, because it's city property,
Got it, okay.
and you already have to go through
The city.
the application to rent. Now, it's just not, what's the difference between the application and permit? No.
I guess application is what you give the city, and the permit is what the city gives you.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
like right now, you have
Well, they may be the same document.
So is there a form that you all have created already
No, no.
for the permit?
No, ma'am.
Oh,
just
That's to be done.
depending on all resolution.
Question for clarification, please. Could Mr. Barton kind of explain more? I haven't heard the Parks Commission involved in this before. Could he kind of clarify a little bit of what Mr. Leonard said as far as them overseeing, if that's possible, sir?
Well, I'm not sure it is. Mr. Leonard can certainly speak for himself. But I think that what we've got here, and the issue will be, who's the point of contact? If someone comes in and they want to have a parade, they want to rent a building, whatever the certainly interaction is, it's a protest, it's a gathering, it's a happy celebration, whatever it is. Who's the point of contact? Took away from his comments is who's the point of contact. As far as renting the city buildings are concerned, that's fine, we can deal with it. I would be somewhat reluctant to have a different point of contact for a parade as opposed to a protest or some other kind of thing, because at some point, how do you define it? What's the difference between a parade or a protest to bring some sore subject to light? So I think that contact person, wherever the city decides to have it, whether it's with the Parks Department, the City Hall, or the Police Department, or wherever, probably needs to be the same one.
Thank you, sir.
Because it was suggested to me that some citizens were saying that they could do an ordinance that just did not include the parade period in it. But actually, we're talking about concerns, right? And so took the part out of the parades and just in respect to public assemblies.
Well, it's just my thought is that even though sometimes these gatherings, and I think that's maybe a better a word I like better, whatever handle we put on it, they may have different purposes. One may be celebratory, the other may be to appropriately raise public awareness and consciousness to a contentious issue. Whatever the purpose is, they create some of the same issues for the police, and they create for public safety, and somewhat different. I mean, we all know, I know, with my business being on North Main Street, Drew County Fair Parade, creates lots of issues. They might, leave by 3:30, 4 o'clock, you're not getting home. And nobody's gonna come see you, maintain any gathering, whatever the purpose of the gathering, under the umbrella of the ordinance.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what type of parade?
Oh, it
This
doesn't
would
matter.
include, this doesn't need to make a distinction between the type of parade, like you said, celebratory, or for their candidate, or for whatever
Whatever it
reason, this would cover all of it.
It will cover all of it. And
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I think also, so the question is, we're making an ordinance for the city of Monticello.
Yes.
It don't include Winchester, Wilma, no other little town that's in the county. This is just city limits of Monticello.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor?
I'm thinking you don't think that Wilma is affected by this ordinance, but Monticello is the center of Drew County. And every resident in Wilma, Winchester, Tiller, they have to come here. We go to the same courthouse. Okay, you all beating around the bush, and I'm going to be frank. You all are passing this ordinance because of the protest. It was brought up because of the protest of Marquise Martin. And that's why we're here today, to represent and to speak up and to allow you all to know that we know. It was presented to the chief, it was presented to the mayor by the county judge. Had he not brought that up, this would never be an issue. The parade has been going on for hundreds of years in Monticello, the Christmas parade. Everybody knows that. Okay, there's been several events here in Monticello, and you know nothing occurred at that parade. We had a peaceful protest, but the reaction to it is act like a bunch of wild, crazy, undressed, uncouth, uncivilized people were out there destroying the city of Monticello, breaking windows, breaking glasses. That wasn't the case. But you're reacting to it as if that's the case. And my thing is pass your ordinance if you have to, if you want to, if you fear these types of activities. But we have a right to protest. We have a right to be on that public courthouse square as citizens of this county. So you cannot shut us down. You cannot close us up. If we need to call you and say we're coming to protest because an injustice has been done to somebody's child, have somebody standing by and ready. Don't treat us like this. Don't treat us like we're imbeciles and ignorant, please. That's very insulting. It's very insulting to our intelligence. And we're not ignorant people. And that's what we know that this is. Nobody bit debate at the quorum court. Okay? Nobody bit debate. But they're going to go another avenue because guess what? They want to get their way. And they're going to use whatever powers in that be to get their way. So when they get their way, then what is that saying to us? If you get your way, what are you saying to us? That one protest caused the county judge to go to Little Rock, Arkansas, to get an ordinance to pass in Monticello, Arkansas, Drew County. Is that really necessary? The ordinance you need to pass can be 2 sentences. If you're going to have a protest, give us a week advance notice. If you're going to have a parade, put it on the calendar. These things are simple, but when you go on, if you read the ordinance and the things that they're saying that needs to be in place, it's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, Ms. Mayor, I understand what you're saying, and that's why when I said we're talking about parade, when we're just talking about protests and everything else, that's different. That's different. We're trying to get clarity on a parade, because whatever organization want to have a parade, I don't want to be there all night. I don't want to go through this next month twice. We can get guidelines down for
We're not talking about the Wilma Parade.
But what I'm saying is, we're trying to write an ordinance since it's brought up. We know why it's brought up.
Yes, we do.
We know why it's brought up. We know that, everybody knows that. That's why it was pulled from the county at the time, it was tabled with the city. But we're gonna have to, with this issue coming up, we got to get guidelines for a parade. Now, when you wanna talk, I don't wanna talk about it, but when you wanna talk about a protest, I can't see nobody stopping. I really can't, by law, because it's a constitutional right.
I think it's disrespectful for them to
But
close
we're trying
the
to
courthouse
get,
down.
first, get the simple thing down as far as parades. We have parades that go on all through the year, that, like you said, they're on the calendar, you know when they have them. We just wanna get to where, when they have a fair parade or the homecoming, whatever parade it is, you go get a permit, you go get an application and file it, and that covers that.
I wanna say this too. We haven't passed anything. We're having a discussion tonight to come to a resolution and to make a recommendation. So I wanna get that straight, because anything that leaves out, we wanna make sure it comes with clarity. We haven't passed anything. We were selected to have this type of discussion about why, who, what, when, and why it may be necessary, if you agree to be necessary, get your opinion just like you get in, air it out like you said, because there's, we know that there's been a concern about the timing of which. So we know that and getting around to that. But hadn't anything passed. This is to come to a recommendation to our city, if I'm correct, as to if we even want to have an ordinance, or the second thing, it may be an application that can resolve the issue. The chief says, I need to know who, what, when, and where, and how. An application could resolve some things because we need to know what's going on around us. And he's trying to provide that type of protection for those who will protest, who will be in parade, who will do whatever. But that may come to that point. So, yeah, we're just having a discussion right now. But again, we haven't passed anything, we've come to a resolution. Some of us think there should be an ordinance, some of us think that there should not be an ordinance. As I said, it may be an application that will help things. That's because the city or the police chief, if they're gonna do their job, they need to know something. That's all that I think that it means.
And Ms. Perry, I will agree with what you said. I think we can shorten this way down. We just need to know when.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, in one of the points that we make, if we have a point of contact, if you're planning, let's just say you're planning to protest gas prices tomorrow. Of course, I'd probably be out there with you.
Okay.
If you're protesting gas prices tomorrow, all right, and there's somebody that says if she shows up protesting gas prices, we're gonna have a problem. All right, if law enforcement knows about it, I can have people there, if you want them, if you say, hey, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them being there, I'm fine with them not. We got some threats, and people trying to inhibit us from protesting. I don't want to get a call to respond after someone's been hurt, stepped out in traffic, whatever, after the fact, if we could have prevented it. That's our whole point. I don't care if we protest pro-gun, anti-gun, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, pro-this, whatever. That's none of my business. My political views, I've got nothing to do with it. But if I've got to call in 5 officers to help with a protest, or to separate 2 opposing groups, if you want protection while you're protesting, or if anybody does, then we need to know. Because a protest that's going on, say, on the square, and let's just say there's a bad traffic accident at 425 and 278, and I don't know about the protest or the rally, or as Reverend Buffett and I talked about, something that's equally important, it's getting completely overshadowed with all this other stuff, is the chance to have a candlelight vigil for someone who passed away. I can't just let a wreck sit at 425 and 278 until we get done guarding candlelight vigil or protest. I just need to have the people in to effectively provide protection, and so somebody doesn't step out in traffic, or somebody doesn't show up and cause trouble for the people who are protesting. This ordinance, putting it in place, protects the protesters. It protects the person. This is not about anything in particular. Honestly, it should have been done a long time ago. Little Rock's got one, a lot of different cities have it. So a lot of them are way more restricted than what we're wanting. We just need notice. That's all we need, is notice, and if it's gonna be moving from point A to point B, you're gonna want an intersection block, probably, unless you wanna take a chance with Monticello traffic, which I wouldn't. But that's all our point. Just communicate. We're not trying to inhibit, prohibit, whatever. We just want to be communicated, that's all.
So I asked the city attorney, what if we wanted to bring this to an application for what you just said? Who, what, when, and where? Why? That kind of.
We don't even wanna know why.
Okay,
We're,
just
we're,
who,
we're
what,
good
when,
with
and where?
where you gonna be, when you
Okay.
gonna be there, do you need us?
Okay,
That's all we care about.
so in order to even introduce an application, we would have to have an ordinance in
To say you
place.
have to do the application,
Okay, we have to have an ordinance,
to say you
say.
have to have an application.
okay, that we have to have an application. So, with that being said,
And if I was speaking to the sense here, there's not a lot of the city saying no to this. I mean, the city's not even entitled to, doesn't want to even know what's going on. You know, we don't know when, we don't know where, and they want to have your best idea of how many people, because those go into managing public safety. But there's no saying no. That's just not part of this. So, it's not, the city would have no right, nothing, to say, well, you know, that's an interesting application, but we don't like this. We don't like anything about this. And you know, and the Bill Allen Florence Road there 5 years ago. I mean, if that was in the city of Monticello, whoever's looking at that application would be looking at that and saying, I don't like anything about this. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you can say no, as bad as you might want to say no, you don't say no. And there's nothing about this. This is not about regulating someone's political speech, that the right to assemble and the right to speak, and particularly to speak on public issues, are guaranteed by the United States Constitution. And we all know that it's the most sacred stuff of our country. And you just don't say no to that. And that's not, if this is too long, if it reads too complicated, you know, we can certainly address that. I think the overview, as I understand it from the city folks that have asked me to help them with this, is we want to know what's going on so that we can manage our affairs and manage public safety, not regulate assembly, regulate speech. That conduct by the government, it wouldn't last any time at all, and we wouldn't do that.
There was one issue that was brought up, Reverend Buffett brought up, I don't know if he expounded more on that, but, there was some discussion about, typically, in most of your cities, they'll have a, and I know, I think of Fayetteville that I've read, it's an extended amount of notice that you have to give, and I don't think that that's applicable here. I think that if we could have a reasonable amount of time of notice to adequately prepare for whatever the event was, that would be great. I think, you know, I would leave that up to you, but I think 24 hours, 48 hours, something along those lines is fine with us. That gives us time to let people know, don't get too comfortable at home tomorrow, we might need you to come in. The other issue, and I'll let Reverend Buffington expand a little bit on that, but when things happen that require, and maybe not immediate, but soon after response, fall into a time frame not specified by the ordinance, what does this committee suggest happen there?
Repeat that.
By breaking news, if an incident happens, that requires citizens of Monticello coming together, whether it be an incident with a police issue, I can tell you right now that people are not going to come asking for a permit to protest against an injustice that's already been done. The notice that you're going to get is the moment the incident happened, that's going to be the notice. But what we're saying is that we don't want to feel that we have to protest against something that has, an injustice has been done
Italian place, you can't work tonight, is that gonna be people randomly show up and protest, or is it lawful? So what we're trying to do is deconflict. And if I'm an employee at a business, and I show up and I can't get into work, and I'm trying to save tip money to buy baseball uniforms, I'm probably gonna be agitated at whoever's out there doing whatever. So if there is some communication, I think if we have something, and we can see if we can find a spot in between here. But if there was a very important issue that occurred, that was within the time frame, you know what I mean, say if we set a 48-hour notice, it might not be in 12-hour notice, that a good faith effort be made to contact law enforcement, at least let us know, let the businesses know.
Well, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna go back and say this, let me say this. If one of our young citizens is, if an incident like the Floyd incident happens, we pray to God that it does not happen in the city of Monticello. But
It did. Marquise Martin,
Marquise
my
Martin,
son, it
okay,
did.
all right.
Let's call it shoe.
So
Call it.
if the citizens come together to protest, they're not gonna give you no 48-hour notice.
I understand.
If they're not gonna give you,
It's not 48 hours.
no, they're gonna give you, I mean, if it happens, just expect that the citizens are going to protest. Their voices are going to be heard. Now, how do you control that? That's gonna be left up to you guys to tell the woman at the waitress, well, I don't know how you're gonna get your tips today. At this point, it's not our concern.
If I may, ACLU, on its website for protesters and knowing their rights, it says that police can't use, procedures such as that to prevent a protest that's in response to breaking news events. So I think
Well,
that's.
and that's true, and that's true, we're not trying to.
I know.
But what I'm saying is,
I'm
just because I have the right to protest, doesn't give me the right to break the law. And if I decide to protest, tomorrow out in front of his church, and I don't let anybody go in the, because it's something that upsets me, and I don't let anybody, I stand in the way, are you gonna call the police and say, hey, you can't get into my church because this guy's standing in the way? I'm breaking the law by doing that. I'm
Yes.
obstructing a highway.
Yes.
And so you understand, and look, you guys do with it what you want, I'm just telling you. When you have a situation, if it's a peaceful protest, you're protected under the First Amendment for peaceful protest,
I know.
right? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it doesn't give you the right just because it's breaking news to go out and do whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, so
There's got to be some order to it.
Mhm.
And I found personally, from both sides of the spectrum, you'll get a whole lot more done doing it peaceful. And you'll gain a lot more support for your cause doing it peaceful and doing it right than you will, just mob rushing a business or something. And I'm not saying that's gonna happen here, I'm just saying we can prevent that by communication.
As the ordinance states, that as long as it says specifically on part one, on the definitions part, it defines what a public assembly is, and it says things like meeting, demonstration, ticket line, rally, or gathering of more than 20 persons. And specifically, the part I had a question about was it says occupy any public area in a place open to the general public. So I protested in many events around this country, and right here in Arkansas, and like somewhere right here in Monticello. So I know that as a citizen, I have the right to protest. I also know that I can't block the entrance of a place. For example, I know that when it's from his church, that's his property, so I can't get on that. So what I'm saying is, maybe there also needs to be a concentrated effort after we pass this to inform citizens of their rights, so they know you can protest wherever you want to, but these are guidelines so that if you all show up, you won't be arrested. But I think in general, most people know that as long as you're not blocking the entrance or you're not blocking the road or something like that, then you can peacefully protest. That was the point that I was trying to make.
And we're on the same page.
Because I was about to say that, that's really important. I know we probably wouldn't get a chance to, but that's what I wanted to be brought out, is that there's a responsibility that we have. We know we have our rights, but there's also a responsibility to give other people right, the city, and the government rights to do things if we don't do them properly. So we all need to be educated on how it's supposed to be done. Chief and back, do y'all mind if Marcus goes to speak?
Okay. When I came down here, I peaceful protest.
The day that you protested, I had 14 officers close by watching you and making sure that you were okay.
Thank you,
They were all there.
thank you.
We have an obligation, despite the case or the politics or whatever with it, I have an obligation to everybody in this town, regardless of their economic background or their social background, to protect them. And that's why we're here. Now, if, one of the things, and I wouldn't ask for a show of hands, but I know that several of you in here have concealed weapon permits. That's a constitutional right, that's Second Amendment, but nobody bats an eye at getting a permit for it. We're offering something free that gives us a heads up so we can better protect the people that are protesting. And we can better protect, because, you know, there may be people coming here and protest that none of us like. And we're gonna need rules in place for them too. But nothing's gonna go on in this city, hopefully, that we don't have our eye on from a standpoint of protecting the citizens. That's what we're here for. That's why I brought this up. Understand it's not popular, and you know what, that's fine. But if we can all get on the same page, and we can show people that we can work together, then every bit of it's worth it. But here's our opportunity. Here's everybody's opportunity to work together. And for me to give a little bit, and for him to give a little bit, and for her to give a little bit, and let's all meet in the middle. Something we can all do. Here's your chance.
So this is where I propose the ordinance to have the application, some type of wording that will provide you with what you need as an application instead of, well, we got to, I don't know how, I know we all come to agreement that this needs to be fixed. We already know, like, we already know. Yes, sir.
Can this application be presented at every day of the week? Or is this something between Monday and Friday? Or can it be done every day of the week, and a permit be given any day, every day of the week? If I have an issue on Saturday morning, if I can, let's, for example, if the police department is a place where I present the application, and they have permission to give me a permit, they will have their notice, immediate notice, and so they can prepare for it. It seems to me that an application will fix it if an application can be submitted any day of the week, at any time of the week, perhaps through the police department, and they too can give me permission to have a protest at any time, as long as they are notified. They will have their notification immediately. Okay, if they present it, if I make the application at 7 p.m. tonight, he will know at 7:05 whether he's going to give me a permit to do it or not. And therefore, he has not infringed upon my right for peaceful assembly. Right. And so, I think what we might want to do, if an application will fix it, provide that an application can be submitted at any day and any time of the week, and a permit can be given any day and any time of the week. And the police department is notified, and everybody can go on about their way.
And holidays.
Yeah.
Be something too. You know, the day before Thanksgiving, and that's a great point. And I think that, you know, that's something that the council can work out. That in the absence of, you know, exigent circumstances is, I think, the term you have used, when you have exigent circumstances that come up, like you said, something short notice, late night. I think that if we could word that, and this is a Mr. Barton question, but if someone just makes due diligence, shows due diligence to notify whoever the council selects as the point of contact, be it the mayor or the police chief or whoever, that someone tried their best to get a permit. They made the proper steps as much as they could based on what they were, the conditions at the time, that a permit could be granted based on the fact that they really tried to get in touch with the mayor or the chief or whoever, and they were both wrong. That they could document that, and it shouldn't be an issue. I don't have an issue with it. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. We just need to know where you're going to, you know, if you're going to move from point Point A to point B. Say if you're gonna have a rally here, and you're gonna march to point B, like the one you did a year and a half ago. We knew where you were going. We knew which intersections to go. So we didn't have to worry about cars coming up and breaking up the crowd, people walking, and then you got stragglers, and you got my kids that are off to the side and get lost, and you can prevent all that just by that, like what we talked about, just a little bit of forewarning, a little bit of notice, and I think you got it resolved relatively easy.
So I need to know what, oh, sorry.
Good afternoon. I would suggest introducing the ordinance for an application. That way you put all the verbiage, the language that Dr. Branch has spoke of, and the rest of the committee. Application, and then with a personal contact. If the personal contact is going to be the police department, chief of police, or whatever the case may be, let it be that. And then he can branch out to the mayor and the city attorney, whatever. But to make this meeting hold teeth, and I think everybody can put in application. So let's introduce an ordinance for that.
Well, I strongly believe that, we got rights to protest as Americans, and nobody in this world ever had to get a permit to protest. I just think this is Monticello, Arkansas, and being the situation that this occurred, they're doing this to try to stop us from protesting or try to stop us from protesting, and I don't feel like we should have to fill out nothing. If we want a peaceful protest, we as Americans, as Black people, have a right to do that without having to give you guys fill out an application. Now, but that's just unheard of. They really only Arkansas does that. I'm from the city. I know better shit than this. Excuse me. It's only in Arkansas. They try to undermine Black people, and that's exactly what y'all trying to do in this meeting. Tell us we got to get permission to protest, and it's a civil right. We got to let y'all know. We have to get a piece of paper saying it's okay. Really? Really?
I think the paper is to the advantage of the citizens of Monticello, which protects you from any injustice that somebody else might want to do. Yeah, we're in small town Monticello, but anything can happen anytime, anywhere. And I think the paper is there to protect you as citizens. And
they was protecting us when we protested before, and we did not have a permit. Didn't he just say there was officers there?
Yeah.
They're just doing this to undermine us because of the circumstances, and so therefore, they want us to get permission to protest. And we don't have to, we got rights. It's just something y'all came up with.
It's a word I've been hearing since I sat down.
I know.
And it's about communication.
It ain't got no piece of paper
We
saying,
have got to communicate with each other.
and you need to stay sitting down if you ain't trying to help.
I have the right to talk.
I know.
I don't think it's about misleading or misleading. It's about us communicating with each other. I have just as much right for police protection as anybody in this room. I pay taxes in the city of Monticello, the state of Arkansas, just like everybody in this room. And we don't get on one page and communicate with each other. Hey, chief, we doing such and such a thing down here. Just to let them know. Cause somebody might come down there, I might need, police protection. I mean, you got to look at it, the whole big picture.
I'm looking at the big picture, and it's okay to let them know that we're gonna protest, but I don't think we should have to fill out an application.
Okay, from my understanding, we're going around. We gonna do, you said an application or an order?
Okay,
We have to do an ordinance in order to introduce the application, to have that. I did want to say this, is that, okay, so if we do that, of course, you're not gonna be found, for not filling it out, I mean, because you have the right still, we're not trying to break anybody's constitutional right. Yeah, we're not gonna charge, we're not gonna
Well, some cities do charge for fee, but Mr. Barton and I, we discussed that, and we shouldn't have to pay a fee for constitutional rights. However, when you fill out the application, and you can, if it makes anybody feel better, you can change the name from application to, notice of purchase.
just a notification.
I mean, just because if an application applies that you're applying and you can be rejected, I would assume.
Okay.
But if you want to change it to where it's a notice of march, rally, protest, whatever, suits me, call it what you want. But if you want to be able to protest, and you want, if somebody's going by and everything's done on social media these days, and people banner back and forth, and if somebody's gonna go by and throw a water bottle at whoever's protesting, it would be a. They don't always do that.
Well, you know, she informed the sheriff that she was gonna have a protest. He knew that. So, that's all we need to do. We